The moment when everything changes rarely announces itself with thunder. It comes quietly, through details you notice peripherally while passing your own wife in the kitchen. It was January 2025. Outside, El Paso spread its cold Texas winter, not a thick blanket of snow, but enough to frost the double-pane windows with ice crystals. I, Edward, watched my wife Daphne counting coffee cups before heading to work. 9 years we'd lived together. 9 years during which I watched her climb the career ladder at the television channel, saw her sit on my shoulder on our wedding day, heard her ask me about my work at the electronics repair center, listened as I told her about complex smartphone repairs, about clients, about profits and losses. 9 years of shared life in a house on West Side, not a palace, but somehow always warm when she was in it. But that January morning something shifted. The air in our home changed, though I couldn't quite articulate how. Everything looked the same but felt different. It was like watching a photograph fade, degree by degree, without noticing until one day you realized the colors were gone. Daphne had always been able to afford beautiful lingerie. That wasn't a revelation for a woman earning her salary. But the new cosmetics on the bedroom dresser, costing no less than $200 for the set, were somehow too new, too expensive for no visible reason. A new beige dress hung on the closet rack, one I'd never seen before. She positioned herself as a television producer who could afford such things, but there was something else beneath it all. Something unspoken that made my instincts scream. She started going to the gym. In itself, this wasn't unusual. People often worry about their health after 30. But Daphne was going 5 days a week, not 2 or 3 like before. Within 3 months she'd lost 8 kilograms. Her face changed, not radically but enough to notice. Her cheekbones were sharper, her jawline more defined. Her eyes seemed brighter, or perhaps more alive than they'd been in years. A new perfume. Hair cut shorter, more styled and precise. She'd never been careless about her appearance, but now she looked in the mirror frequently. Constantly. Obsessively. She'd stand there in front of the bathroom mirror for minutes, turning her face side to side, examining herself as if she'd become a stranger to herself, or perhaps as if she was becoming someone new, someone different from the woman I knew. New clothes appeared. Not just the one dress. A complete wardrobe transformation. Fitted jeans that hugged her differently. Blouses in colors she'd never worn before. Shoes with heels higher than usual. She was remaking herself, piece by piece, day by day. I wasn't an idiot. I understood that something was happening. The question was what, and more importantly, who. On a Thursday night, when we lay in bed, I heard her leave the bathroom and step into the hallway, keeping a meter's distance from me. I did what I'd never had the right to do before. I took her phone. She was asleep, and this device, one she often stared at late into the night, required a code. I knew the code. After 9 years together, I knew not only the passwords to her devices but also what she did when she thought nobody was watching. Tinder. The application was on her phone. After 9 years of marriage. An app she hadn't deleted after our wedding, kept as some unknown reason, or perhaps simply forgot about it. And then, approximately 7 months ago, she began actively messaging with an unknown man named Jack. Jack was a gynecologist. I discovered this later when I started investigating. His avatar showed a man in his late 30s with a perfectly groomed smile and the appearance of someone who'd never had to struggle with money with people like me. His profile was straightforward. Education at prestigious universities, work at a well-known hospital in El Paso, interest in hiking and adventure. The messaging started dry, almost clinical, but then it picked up momentum. Photographs. Jokes. Plans for meetings, which in the messages were disguised as a simple coffee or a quick trip to the mountains. Mountains. Franklin Mountains. 20 kilometers from us. 20 kilometers that might as well have been 20,000. I released her hand carefully. She slept soundly, undisturbed. I returned the phone to its place on the nightstand. And in that moment, I understood that my wife had been loving me incorrectly for 6 years. Or perhaps not loving me at all, and I had simply perceived her obligation as affection. Everything I believed in had been wrong. That was the first coherent thought that cut through my brain. I lay beside her in the darkness, listening to her breathing, her occasional sighs in sleep. She was beautiful even now. Perhaps more beautiful than she'd been in years. And that beauty, I realized, wasn't for me. It was for someone else. Someone who'd stolen more than just her time. He'd stolen the version of my wife that only I should have known. I didn't sleep that night. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, watching the digital clock change minutes, watching hours pass like a man in a waiting room, waiting for his own life to begin again. I needed a plan. Not a month of blind revenge, but a strategy. I had the competence to understand problems, to break them down into their components, just as I broke down electronics in my repair center. If Daphne thought she could leave Tinder on her phone like a forgotten child's toy, and nothing would happen, she was mistaken. Profoundly mistaken. I purchased a magnetic GPS tracker, a common device used by people to track vehicles or prevent losing keys. It was insurance. It was justice in my understanding. I attached it to the underside of her car's bumper on a Saturday morning while she was in the shower, my hand steady despite the trembling in my chest. My brother William, who works in IT for a tech company in downtown El Paso, helped me with the tracking application. On his keyboard, I watched maps of the city in real time. A black dot, that was Daphne's vehicle. And that black dot had no business not being home. The first week of tracking revealed 14 trips to the mountains. Short drives to Franklin Mountain State Park. Not to one location, but to one region. I kept meticulous records. William's fingers danced across his keyboard while we discussed the possibility of finding the exact address where she was driving. It turned out to be a private house. Then the real address emerged, a home on the mountain slopes owned by a Jack Thompson, registered to him for the past 4 years. I began taking screenshots. I copied all the messaging conversations. I figured out his work schedule at the local hospital, cross-referencing his shifts with her gym trips that lasted hours beyond any reasonable workout. Over all this, I tried to seem normal. Daphne talked about work. She made plans with her girlfriends about athletic weekend getaways to the mountains. It was a banal story, often told by women in our circle. But I knew the truth. My colleagues at the repair center noticed how I'd withdrawn. I was sick mentally but pretended everything was fine. David, my business partner, asked if I was ill. Just tired, I'd answer. It was the truth of a man's internal world when he discovers he's been lied to by the person he trusted most. My sister Vanessa noticed it too. She called me one evening and said, "Eddie, are you okay? You sound different on the phone." I couldn't tell her. Not yet. Not until I understood the full scope of what was happening. I decided that I needed professional help. Not a private investigator, not the police. I needed a lawyer who understood Texas divorce law. I found Matthew, an attorney recommended to me by a friend from the electronics distribution circle. Matthew listened to my story in his office with dark wood paneling, heard me recount the GPS tracker, the Tinder messaging, the expenditures from the joint account. "You have evidence," Matthew said calmly, as if we were discussing the weather. "That's an important position." "I want the divorce to be fair," I responded. "Fairness depends on how you see the situation," Matthew replied. "In Texas, property is divided 50-50 if it's community property. But if there is evidence of financial impropriety on the joint account." He paused, reviewing my documents, copies of transactions where Daphne had transferred $28,000. I had corrected the figure based on what I'd found. This changes the position significantly. Daphne had been transferring money gradually. $2,000 here, $3,000 there. For camping equipment, for hotel rooms in neighboring cities, for gifts, I assumed, to this man. Over 7 months, it accumulated to $28,000. Shared money that I'd earned through my work in the repair business. But I didn't want to sit and complain about money. I wanted everything to be fair, but I also wanted her to understand that lies have a price. "Can you tell me about the evidence collection?" Matthew asked, leaning back in his chair. I told him about the GPS tracker. His expression didn't change. I told him about the screenshots of their conversations. About the hotel receipts I'd found in the trash when she thought I was sleeping. About the fake girls' trips that had actually been nights in private cabins with a man who'd promised her adventure and whatever else he'd promised. Matthew nodded slowly. "This is documented infidelity combined with financial misconduct. We have grounds not just for divorce but for compensation. But money wasn't what I wanted. Money was just evidence. Proof that what we'd had was being dismantled, piece by piece, transaction by transaction. I spent weeks preparing for the next step. I met with my sister Vanessa, who works in human resources for a large company in El Paso. I asked her carefully, "How do companies find out when employees are using work time for personal matters?" Vanessa listened to me with sympathy. She'd always been protective of me even as children. Our parents had divorced when we were young, and she'd taken on a role of protector, of stability. "Usually through colleagues," she answered. "Usually the truth comes out when someone feels they have to speak up." I understood I needed to channel my anger into useful direction. Not at Daphne directly. Not at confrontation that would require angry words and inevitable collapse. But at the system. At the people who enabled it. Jack worked as a gynecologist at El Paso Health Services Hospital. He was a licensed physician. The ethics of his profession were clear. Doctors should not meet patients through dating applications. This wasn't just unethical, it violated professional standards. It was a breach of the trust that patients placed in their physicians. I composed a letter to the Texas Medical Board. An anonymous letter, carefully worded. In it, I described the situation. A licensed physician uses Tinder to arrange meetings, potentially including meetings with patients, which violates ethical standards. I provided information about his name, the hospital, and the application. I included dates of his posted messages referencing his profession and hospital affiliation. Everything was factual. Everything was verifiable. A week later, I received a response from the board. A formal acknowledgement that an investigation had been initiated. Daphne didn't know. She continued her life as though nothing had changed. In February, she told me she was planning another outing with the girls to the mountains. I learned this when I noticed a gas station receipt in her car. When will you be back? I asked her at breakfast. Sunday evening, she answered, not looking up from her coffee. She was a master of lies, my wife. A true master. I looked at her reflection in the kitchen window. For 9 years of marriage, I'd been accustomed to her face, to every expression, to every gesture. But in that moment I saw only a stranger. That weekend she was in the mountains with Jack. I knew this from the GPS tracker. They were at the private house for 7 hours. I sat on the couch in our house on West Side and imagined what they were talking about. Were they laughing? Was she thinking about me? No, probably not. I attended work on Monday, smiling at customers, discussing broken screens and damaged circuits, all while feeling like I was living in another person's body. One customer, an elderly woman with a smartphone that wouldn't turn on, asked me if I was feeling well. Just tired, I said. Always the same answer. Rest, she advised. Life is too short to spend it tired. If only she knew how profound that statement was. But after 2 more months, the situation finally reached a critical point. I understood that I could no longer live in this lie. The GPS tracker wasn't enough. The anonymous letter to the medical board wasn't enough. I had to make a choice, either leave everything as it was or take control of the situation. I chose the latter. I met with attorney Angelica, a woman around my age whom Matthew had recommended. She specialized in divorces and knew every Texas law about property division. She was sharp, direct, and didn't waste time on pleasantries. I want a divorce, I said directly. But not like the ordinary ones. I want it to be fair, but I also want her to know why. Angelica listened to my full story, my voice remaining steady even as I recounted the GPS tracker and the Tinder messages. She didn't judge me. Your case has grounds for financial compensation, she said. These $28,000, they came from the joint account. With fair 50-50 division of property, but considering the financial misconduct. Make her understand that I know, I interrupted. Just make her understand. Angelica nodded. She understood. She'd likely seen this before many times. The devastation of discovery. The need for acknowledgement. The divorce documents were filed in the first week of April. Angelica sent notification to Daphne's address. I remained at work, pretending that everything was normal. The repair center hummed with its usual activity, phones buzzing, tools clinking, the smell of solder and circuit cleaner filling the air. When Daphne came home and read the documents, her world collapsed. She found me in the bedroom. The first questions tumbled out in rapid succession. What is this? What? How? Her voice rose with each word, pitched between confusion and panic. Then she found the GPS tracker. I hadn't hidden it. When she discovered it under the bumper of her car the next day, she screamed. I heard it from the garage where I was reorganizing tools, a task that required no thought. You followed me? She shouted. You spied on me? I know about Jack, I said calmly. Her face turned white. All the beauty she'd created in the gym, all the cosmetics that cost $200, all the new clothes and perfect hair, it all crumbled in a single moment. I watched her world rearrange itself before my eyes, watched her realize that nothing she'd done had gone unnoticed. It's not what you think, she began. Daphne, I know about Tinder. I know about the trips to the mountains. I know about every single money transfer. I know about him. She fell on the bed, her knees buckling as though the floor had suddenly disappeared beneath her. I didn't mean to, it just. You lied to me for 9 years, I said. Or maybe not 9 years. Maybe 7 months. Maybe all 9. After that conversation, everything moved quickly. Daphne called Jack. I don't know what she told him, but days later I discovered he'd stopped responding to her messages. His profile on Tinder disappeared. His social media went quiet. He was erasing himself. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and click like if you enjoy this story. I always read your comments and analyze which stories you like best so that I can create better stories. Thank you. I will continue the story. Jack vanished from her life as soon as he learned that she was married. Her lover revealed himself for what he truly was, a man who wanted adventure, not complications. A man who needed excitement on weekends, not obligations. Daphne remained alone in our house, waiting for the divorce documents to become final. But I wasn't finished. I published a series of objective reviews on medical websites about Dr. Jack Thompson, noting his ethical violations, meeting with patients through dating applications, using his professional position for personal contacts. Nothing was false, only facts. I was careful with every word, ensuring that nothing could be construed as defamation. Everything was observation, everything was verifiable. The reviews appeared on medical review sites, always from verified patients, always mentioning professionalism and ethical concerns. I used different accounts, different perspectives, but always the same truth. Over the course of weeks, the cumulative effect was undeniable. I contacted the television channel where Daphne worked, indicating that she was using work time for personal matters, regularly being absent under the pretense of professional assignments. They had a policy regarding employees who didn't respect work hours. The Human Resources Department took such violations seriously. Daphne received an official warning. I spoke to our mutual friends about the truth. Not all the details, but enough. She had cheated on me through Tinder with a doctor from our city. People understood betrayal. People comprehended infidelity. The calls stopped coming. Her social media filled with silence. The group chat that included her began excluding her from invitations. Jack received an official warning from the Texas Medical Board. His position at the hospital came into question. Several months later, I learned that he was looking for work in another state. His reputation, once untouchable within medical circles, had become something fragile, something questioned. The divorce was finalized in September 2025. Property was divided 50-50, according to Texas law, but accounting for the documented financial misconduct, I received compensation of $13,000. The house went on the market and sold within 3 weeks. We each received our portion. I invested the money I'd accumulated over the years of working in the repair business, combined with the compensation, into a new house in a better neighborhood in El Paso. It wasn't larger than the previous one, but it was mine. Only mine. I stood in the empty rooms and felt something I hadn't felt in months, the absence of deceit. The walls weren't witnesses to lies. The rooms hadn't heard false promises. The air was clean with possibility. Daphne remained in an apartment on the outskirts of the city. She no longer goes to the gym. The new hairstyle grows out and she hasn't replaced it with another cut. The expensive perfume is gone, and she probably won't buy something so costly again. Her career in television continues, but with less energy, with less joy. I saw her once in a supermarket in November, 3 months after the divorce was final. She was alone as I had predicted. We didn't speak. I had nothing to say. She was buying groceries, mundane items, milk, bread, vegetables. She looked tired, but not in the way that simple fatigue brings. She looked tired in the way that comes from carrying the weight of your own choices. Her life continues, but she lives with the consequences of that choice. And Jack? Jack moved to California. I learned this from William, who always finds information. A new state, a new hospital, a new life. As if nothing had happened. As if the past could be simply abandoned like a discarded phone. But reputation travels ahead of a person. I thought about this many times during those months, how frequently people meet in professional circles, how rumors spread among medical colleagues. Maybe questions follow him everywhere. Maybe he's learning to live with suspicion, with wondering who knows and who doesn't. My sister Vanessa told me months later, you know what the worst punishment for a person is? It's when they remain alone with themselves, with their conscience. I'm not certain whether Jack has a conscience, but I know that Daphne does. I saw it in her eyes at the supermarket, in the slump of her shoulders, in the way she moved through the world like someone carrying an invisible weight. A year has passed since the exposure. It's now winter 2026. I sit in my repair center, fixing a smartphone for a woman who asks me to recover deleted photos. I do it well. It's my work, my life. Vanessa often asks whether I regret anything. The GPS tracker? The letter to the medical board? The public exposure? I answer her the same way every time, I regret trusting my heart to someone without first ensuring they would protect it. But revenge? No. I didn't revenge, I simply allowed the truth to be true. I allowed the system to work. I allowed people to know the facts. Daphne is learning to live with the consequences. Jack is living with questions about his reputation and future. And I? I live with the knowledge that I remained true to myself, that I didn't break, that I acted justly in a world that is often unjust. This isn't reconciliation. This isn't forgiveness. It's simply life after pain, life after betrayal. It's the continuation that comes after the choice. William and Vanessa spend holidays with me now. I've reconnected with friends I'd drifted from during the marriage. There's a quiet satisfaction in knowing that I handled everything correctly, not perfectly but ethically. I don't think about Jack anymore. I don't think about Daphne's apartment or her life. I don't wonder if she's happy or if she regrets her choices. That's her burden now, not mine. What I think about is the future. About what I'll build in this new house, in this new version of my life. About the fact that honesty and integrity still matter, even when everything else seems to crumble. Last month, I hired a new technician at the repair center. Her name is Rachel. She's 23, fresh out of college, eager to learn about electronics. She has a genuine curiosity about how things work, about solving problems, about building something of value. We have good working conversations. I'm not looking for a relationship. I'm not lonely enough to desperately seek companionship. But I'm not closed off either. I've learned that life doesn't follow the stories we think we're writing. Sometimes the plot changes. Sometimes betrayal teaches you how to see clearly again. Sometimes the ending you get isn't the one you imagined, but it's the one you needed. Thank you for watching this video. YouTube may no longer suggest my channel to you, so subscribe to it to receive new interesting stories. You will also help the channel grow and improve the quality of its content. The screen now displays a playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to. You can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.